They swore they would return, not for gold, not for glory, but for revenge. 15 years earlier, they had tasted defeat on Spanish soil, a humiliation so crushing that their ships burned, their warriors fell by the hundreds, and their pride sank beneath Andalusian waves. The year was 844. Seville had been their target, a glittering prize of Islamic Al-Andalus. But when the armies of Cordoba retaliated, the Norsemen were obliterated. For a Viking, there is no such thing as forgotten shame. Honor must be restored. Blood must be repaid. And so, in 859, they returned, not to Spain this time, but to a place no Northman had ever dared to set foot. A land beyond the known world. A continent wrapped in myth and fire. Africa. Before we dive into this epic tale of vengeance, make sure you've watched the first chapter, The Viking Raid on Seville, in 844. It's linked in the comments below. That battle is where this story truly begins. Because today, we're sailing south, past the legendary Pillars of Hercules, into the heart of Morocco itself. This is the story of how the Vikings took their revenge on Islam, and paid the ultimate price. By the middle of the 9th century, the Viking Age had hit its absolute zenith. From the misty shores of Ireland all the way to the distant waters of the Caspian Sea, Norse longships had become floating legends, symbols of terror, power, and unstoppable ambition. Western Europe had been ravaged over and over again. Monasteries, torched, kings, held for ransom. Rivers, transformed into Viking highways of destruction. But raiding Europe wasn't enough anymore. In the year 859, something extraordinary happened. A massive fleet, perhaps 60 longships strong, gathered along the Atlantic coasts of France and northern Spain. Leading this armada were captains whose names would echo through history: Björn Ironside and Hastin, legendary sons of the infamous Ragnar Lothbrok. These weren't just warriors, they were architects of chaos, men who had already torn through the Mediterranean and lived to tell the tale. To them, the world wasn't divided by borders or empires, it was one endless ocean, waiting to be conquered. The route they chose was as brutal as it was bold. First, they descended upon Galicia, hammering the coasts of Asturias and extracting tribute from terrified Christian kings. No mercy, no hesitation. Then they turned their sights on Lisbon, a thriving port under Muslim Al-Andalus rule, proving once again that no empire, Christian or Islamic, was beyond their reach. From there, they struck Cadiz. And then, driven by either ambition or sheer madness, they did the unthinkable. They sailed toward the Strait of Gibraltar. Now, this wasn't just a geographical crossing, this was mythological. Beyond that narrow passage lay the Maghreb, the place where, according to legend, the sun itself set. It was an Islamic frontier ruled by fierce Berber dynasties, answering only to the spiritual might of the Abbasid Caliphate. The Vikings had raided Christian lands. They had struck at Byzantium, they had terrorized Slavic territories. But to challenge Islam's Western Gate? That was entering an entirely new realm of danger. And their target? Not the grand cities of Fez or Marrakesh. No. They aimed for something smaller, but just as valuable. Nekor was a small, but prosperous Berber kingdom nestled in the Rif Mountains, not far from what is today Al-Hoceima. Founded in the early 8th century, it had grown into a vital trade hub connecting the Sahara, Andalusia, and the Mediterranean. Its ruler, Sayyid ibn Salih al-Miknasi, governed a people renowned for their fierce independence and unwavering devotion to Islam. They were warriors, traders, survivors. But even the strongest faith can be caught sleeping. The Vikings arrived without warning. For the people of Nekor, the horizon had always been calm. They had heard rumors of the Magis, the fire-worshipping raiders from the frozen north who had terrorized Al-Andalus. But no one believed these demons would dare cross the sea to Africa itself. And then, one autumn morning, the ocean turned to blood. 60 longships glided into Moroccan waters, their oars slicing through the Mediterranean like the beating heart of a storm. From their decks, the Vikings gazed upon something no Norseman had ever seen before: the ochre cliffs of Africa. It was breathtaking. And for Nekor, it was the beginning of 8 days of absolute hell. The fleet landed near the Bay of Al-Hosima at the edge of the Rif. There were no fortresses, no garrison, just scattered fishing villages, defenseless and unsuspecting. Once ashore, the Norsemen split into smaller warbands, following rivers and valleys that snaked inland toward Nekor. The Berbers were caught completely off guard. King Said was still in the capital when the first scouts arrived with news of smoke rising from the coast. Thinking it was just a minor raid, he dispatched troops to deal with them. But the enemy kept coming. And coming. And coming. Every path from the sea seemed to vomit forth new warriors, men clad in chainmail, bearing round shields painted with monstrous beasts. The Vikings advanced with terrifying speed. Trained in river warfare, they moved light, struck hard, and vanished before defenders could even organize. Villages along the route were burned. Their people, enslaved. Within days, the Norsemen reached Nekor itself. The capital was modest in size, but rich in wealth. And it became the eye of the storm. Later chronicles describe the attack in chilling detail. The Majus fell upon Nekor like wolves upon a fold. The defenders fought bravely, but they were outnumbered, disoriented, and unprepared. The Vikings stormed the walls, ransacked the mosques, and set fire to the markets. King Said fled into the surrounding mountains, desperate to rally survivors for a counterattack that would never come. For 8 days, Nekor burned. The Vikings looted everything: gold, silk, ivory, and most valuable of all, slaves. They captured men, women, and children beyond count, hauling them onto their ships to be sold later in the ports of Al-Andalus and the Balearic Islands. But victory came with a price. Word of the raid spread like wildfire across the Muslim world. Governors in Al-Andalus and neighboring Berber tribes immediately raised fleets to intercept the invaders before they could escape. As the Vikings withdrew to their ships, heavily laden with treasure and prisoners, Berber cavalry harassed their retreat. Some warbands were trapped and annihilated in the mountain passes. Others barely reached the coast, only to find enemy sails closing in on the horizon. When the longships finally pushed back into open water, the hunters had become the hunted. Muslim warships from Almira and Tunis clashed with them off the Moroccan coast. Several Viking ships were burned or captured outright, many warriors were slain, others were enslaved, a bitter irony for men who had come to enslave others. The survivors fled north, their once proud fleet now scattered, bloodied, and broken. For Nekor, the destruction was total. Its mosques lay in ruins, its markets were silent. Its people were scattered, enslaved, or dead. The once thriving capital of the Rif smoldered beneath the African sun, its rivers choked with ash and debris. But from those ashes rose a legend that would haunt Arabic chronicles for centuries. The Vikings were no longer seen as mere men. They became the Magus, fire-worshipping demons from the sea, embodiments of chaos who had dared to strike at the very heart of Islam's western frontier. They had come for revenge, they had struck at Africa itself. And though they escaped with their lives, the cost was immense. So, did the Vikings get their revenge for Seville? Technically, yes. They raided Nekor, plundered its wealth, and escaped with their ships full of treasure and slaves. But was it worth it? That's debatable. Because in challenging the Islamic world on its own soil, they awakened a fury they couldn't contain. And while they sailed home with gold, they left behind a legend that would forever mark them as demons in the eyes of North Africa. If this story blew your mind, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic historical battles you've never heard of. Drop a comment below. Do you think the Vikings should have stopped at Europe, or was this raid a bold move that solidified their legacy? Watch the first battle at Seville linked below, and stay tuned, because this saga is far from over.